highly anticipating this little segment we're going to have here with a girl who's quickly becoming famous here in South Jersey in her own right, Megan Conover. Now, if you're not a fan of Glory Days Magazine, you might not have ever heard her name, but if you are a fan of Glory Days Magazine, you know how famous she became this week as she got into that lineup on senior night, scored some points. Great young lady for Egg Harbor Township High School. And a photo that I posted on Facebook and Twitter gained more than 100,000 impressions on social media. So she's her own little star here. In studio with Megan is her family, Dad Jim, Mom Renee, and his older sister Sarah. So we are glad to have them on board to talk a little high school basketball and some other issues that have to deal with high school sports and why Megan has become such a big part of that Egg Harbor Township sort of social fabric over there. She's I guess, Jim, you'd say she's kind of one of the biggest stars in the school right now.
It's crazy to think, where we were 4 years ago and hoping she fit in a school of, 3,000 kids.
Right.
And to where she is today, where we go literally nowhere without someone yelling her name. So it's pretty cool. And I'm so proud.
One of the coolest responses. Now, when I posted that photo on Facebook, it got, I think, almost 100 comments, over 300 shares. Twitter, it got over, 15, 20,000 impressions. And one of the coolest comments on Twitter was, I guess it was maybe a classmate of hers or something like that, said, "Oh, she's my favorite person. Comes into ShopRite with Grandma Joan." So even outside of school, people know Megan Conover, right?
Yeah, it's funny because she just has always been one of those kids that people seem to gravitate to. She just is one of the. We've always said that she's always been the cure for a bad day. She just has kind of an infectious personality that people seem to really draw to. And
now, Jim, give us some quick background on your family and Megan, and kind of as to why we're here today and how we got here.
Well, she was pretty much special from the second she was born. She was born and there were some complications, and we literally got to take 2 blinks and they rushed her out.
Wow.
She spent first couple weeks of her life up at Jefferson, and with just a multitude of things. Nothing, it was never life-threatening, thank God, or nothing like that, but just a multitude of little issues, but she melted everybody's heart at Jefferson, and it was just, it was really neat to see. Fast forwarding to school, we started her. Egg Harbor Township does such a tremendous job with special education, and
they really do, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But continue with your story.
They have a what they call a disabled preschool class, which enabled her to start school at 3 years old, and she really wasn't too thrilled about going, but quickly turned to love it. And
she wanted to stay home and watch cartoons, right?
And with me and Sarah being so involved in sports, she was always kind of just pushed around to all of Sarah's soccer tournaments, and she just has always been part of the group. And we moved on to her wanting to play, and that, I guess that started at Green Tree Church. She played in their little intramural thing that they had.
Now, when you first approached, I guess with Fernwood, right? That's the middle school.
Fernwood Middle School. So
you first approached Jeannie Williams down there and said, "Hey, can Megan help out with the basketball program a little bit?" And you were kind of surprised at her reaction, right?
I was. Well, the original hope was just that maybe she could sit at the scorer's table for their home games and push the buzzer to let the refs know there were subs. And Jeannie says, "Oh no, if she's interested." She says, "I've got a uniform."
You're all in or you're out, right?
Yes. She says, "We don't have huge numbers. I'm not cutting anybody. If she wants to play, she can play." We're like, wow, okay. But even at that, you don't know how she's going to, be accepted with the other girls, in practice. And,
yep.
And they instantly took her under their wing, and she loved it, and it's just continued
Now, Megan, step up to the microphone there real quick. What was it like the first time you got to play on a team and got the uniform and everything? How cool was that?
I thought that it was pretty amazing.
Did you ever expect to be on a basketball team?
I wanted to, but
you weren't sure if they were going to give you a chance?
Yeah.
And how was Coach Williams? Was she nice to you or was she tough on you?
She was nice to me.
So Jim, she kind of gets involved with that middle school basketball program and came up with these same group of girls that are now on the varsity. Now, what were you expecting going into high school? Because, okay, that might be fine in a middle school, but high school is a little bit different atmosphere, a little bit different animal, much more highly competitive when you're starting to talk about the varsity scene and all that stuff. So were you kind of unsure of how she would fit into the high school program?
A similar situation, again, she wanted to be involved in the program, and at that point I'm thinking, okay, maybe more like a manager role, she'll get the basketballs or, stuff like that. And so I went to, at that time it was Karen Schutz who was the head coach, and I went to her and, she had already knew about Megan. Her mom was involved at Green Tree, so she knew about Megan. She's like, oh, no. We've got room for her. She's in the program,
That's awesome.
And so she played in the freshman team the first year, and Coach Amy Rinkowitz was the freshman coach at that time, who's now the JV coach. She kind of adopted her, and Megan was her shadow, and she'd get her in at the end of games, and she'd get a chance to throw up a shot or two, and it. But what was cool is they allowed her to dress and sit on the varsity bench even as a freshman. And it was, as it was said to me, because she's really important to these girls. And I was like, wow, that's, just think about that. Here's a kid at the time is, 4'4", and, she's
I wasn't much taller as a freshman. I was about 5'1" as a freshman.
And she was literally in a uniform on the bench for the varsity. So that was really cool.
If you're just joining us here, we're welcome to the South Jersey Sports Report. We got some special in-studio guests, the Conover family, Jim, Renee, Sarah, and Megan of Egg Harbor Township girls basketball. So, Megan, tell me what it was like the first time you put on that Egg Harbor Township High School uniform. How nervous were you?
I wasn't nervous at all.
Really?
No.
How come?
Because I knew that I would be a big part of the team, and I knew that.
So even as a freshman, you knew you were going to be a star.
Yeah.
Let's bring Sarah in here real quick, older sister. Now, Sarah, you had a pretty nice career there as well as an athlete at Egg Harbor Township. What's it like been watching your sister kind of grow and mature into what she's become today?
It's pretty cool. I mean, she was just dragged around to all my soccer tournaments growing up. But she was always part of the team there, too. All my friends absolutely loved her. She was included in everything. It was never she was like the little sister hanging around. She was just one of the girls that got to hang out with us. So, it was really cool to then see, my friends all accepted her, and then to see that, through the years in Egg Harbor Township, that really wasn't any different when it came to girls that were her age, too. So it was
Did you
awesome
notice, now on senior night this past Monday, did you notice any difference in her demeanor? Was she the same old Megan, or was she a little nervous? How did you see her before the game?
I don't think she gets nervous. It's kind of cool. She just has this confidence about her that, she knows what she can do, and she's going to go and do it, and she's just going to make us all really proud.
I know she was nervous last spring prior to the softball state championship. The coaches were saying her stomach was tied in knots. She couldn't handle the pressure of it. I mean, she was one of the managers on the team there, and that was a pressure-packed situation. So, do you remember about that? Or?
Yeah, I was living in Pennsylvania at the time, so I would get texts about that championship run all the time, and she's like, "I'm so nervous for the girls," but that was really awesome too. I mean, they were amazing last year.
I guess like any athlete, you're a little bit less nervous when you get a chance to play. So.
Yeah, I think her knowing that she could go out there and score some points for her team, she knew she would go in and she would make that basket. So she was confident.
Now, Sarah, what was that like for you as an older sister who's been such a big part of her life to see her announced on senior night? I mean, that's That's what it's all about when you're a high school basketball player. That senior night, the crowd's all there. You get to hear your name announced in the starting lineup, even if you've been a player that hasn't really started much in your career, if not ever. I mean, this was Megan's first start. So, what was going through your mind at that point?
It was just awesome. I mean, just to see how much she's grown and matured over the years, it's just really amazing to see because, as a big sister, you don't know, how people are gonna react to Megan, but everyone just loves her, and it's really good to see.
Normally, I only make moms cry, not older sisters.
She's clearly Megan's biggest fan, without a doubt.
Studio guests here for the first half hour. The Conover family's with us from Egg Harbor Township. Dad, Jim, Mom, Renee, older sister, Sarah, and the star of the show, Megan Conover, senior at Egg Harbor Township. She really lit social media on fire this week as she got into the starting lineup for the first time ever, scored a couple of baskets, and really became kind of the story of the night there in that game against Vineland. Now, Megan, were you nervous at all? You got the opening tip-off, and it's your time to go down there and shoot a basket. Were you nervous that you wouldn't make it?
No, I was not nervous.
You knew all along your first shot was going in, huh?
Yeah.
So what's it been like at school this week after all this attention?
Well, all of the teachers that, saw that, what I did, they kept on wanting to talk to me. And
what about the boys? Any boys come over and talk to you?
There were a couple of boys here
all right. But couple of boys taking notice. All right.
Not that many though.
Well, maybe soon. Maybe soon after now that you're a big radio star as well. I mean, you might start getting some calls. What do you think about that, Dad?
Yeah, Dad's got the gun ready.
So, Dad, Jim here along with us. Tell us about just the whole experience of that senior night. Really, really a cool night. And like you said before, you didn't know if she was going to be able to even be a part of this program. And to see her in the starting lineup had to have been a huge thrill for you. And you're now one of the assistant coaches with the squad.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Diz, or Danielle, everybody calls her Diz, the head coach there at EHT. She's always been such a huge supporter of Meg, and started before the season when she came to Meg and told her that she was making her one of the senior captains. That was really cool, and so she gets to go out every game before the start and meet with the other captains and the referees, and the whole league just treats her so well. But then senior night comes, and the big dilemma was, okay, now we got to come up with a handshake with Symphony at the end of the line. So that before the game they were working on the handshake, and fittingly the dance known as the Little Meg in Egg Harbor Township ended up being the celebration at the
That's right, because if you're not familiar with high school basketball, what each team kind of does now is they'll have one of the bench players at the end of the line there, and each player will come through as they're announced, and they kind of have their own personalized little handshake going on with each of the starting players.
Yeah, that's so that was the big thing. They were putting posters up and figuring out what the handshake was going to be. And I have to say, I've been around sports all my life, and I don't generally get nervous, but I was a little nervous when they were throwing the ball up to start the game, and I knew she was getting the tap. And now her shooting percentage is really, really pretty good.
It's off the charts. She's shooting about 90% from the floor,
but,
right?
I thought, this is a big crowd here tonight. Let's see how she does. And in typical Megan fashion, not phased at all, and she hit the first one. I was like, wow.
Jim, we're here with the Conover family, Megan, Sarah, Jim, and Renee. And Jim, talk real quick about the coaching staff at Egg Harbor Township, even the ones that Megan's not involved with directly. Obviously, with Christy Troster from field hockey and soccer, or field hockey and softball. Then you have that great basketball coaching staff, Mary Dunlap with the softball team, who Megan's worked with. Just this whole group of coaches have really they do so much for these special needs children in the high school. And talk about that real quick, about what it means as a parent to have that kind of support in the coaching staff.
Well, just in the whole district is that way. But with the coaches, and you got to think, they've got so much on their plate in preparing for practices, preparing for games, arranging for bus schedules. For them to be as actively involved and taking the interest that they all have, they've become lifelong friends, and that's just so special. And I don't know how other schools do, but I'd be hard pressed to believe that it's that way everywhere.
And we saw that last spring with Coach Ryan Smith of the boys track team. He went and got together that GoFundMe account to get a racing wheelchair for Tyler Millett, right, who's one of the special needs children over there at Egg Harbor Township High School, who's, we featured in the past in Glory Days. He kind of got taken under Angelo Branco's wing as the football team and really became a huge part of that program. They called him Coach T after a while. So it's really neat to see, especially in this day and age, and talk briefly about this, when you hear so many of these stories about the bullying and, teen suicide and all these other big issues. It's great to see that the kids, like the girls on the basketball team and the boys on the football team, they start to get an understanding of what it's like when somebody's facing challenges that they don't have to face. When you're talking about a boy like Tyler, a girl like Megan, and it's such a big issue in high schools is to get these kids to understand that if you accept these other kids who are different than you get so much more out of it than you would have ever thought, right?
Oh, and I think that's what they're learning, is that there's a benefit. Obviously, there's a benefit for the special needs student athlete, but there's a benefit for the regular curriculum athlete. The learning of how to work with people who are different, and because in high school you're sheltered, you got your own little group,
right,
but in the big bad world, we need to figure out how to get along, and they learn very quickly that everybody matters, and it's really neat to see.
Yeah, my buddy Mike Schneider, who's the girls swimming coach at Vineland, he made a great comment on the post on Facebook. He said, hey, wins are great, and that's what every high school coach is going after. They want to win games, but this is, when he saw the picture of Megan, he said, this is what high school sports is really about, the ability of these kids to learn something that they might not have had a chance to if they weren't involved with high school sports.
And Egg Harbor Township, all the coaches there do a really good job of putting everything in perspective. Obviously, they're as competitive as anybody, but they realize that high school sports serves more than just a win-loss purpose. There's life lessons to be learned.
Right.
And this is just one of them.
Now, Megan, speaking of coaches, who's your favorite coach at Egg Harbor Township?
Every coach.
Every coach, all right.
She was prepared for that question. Diz asked her on the bus who she was going to answer, and she told her that they were all lobbying for her to say their name, but she did the politically correct
Kevin Minnick of the
thing.
Courier Post always kind of makes fun of me a little bit because he's like, oh, Sully, I know there's always a curveball coming from you, some kind of crazy question. So that was my curveball. You handled it well, Megan. So how's senior year going for you, Megan?
I think senior year going pretty well for me.
Keeping your grades up?
Yeah.
You better
I
be.
am.
Better be. Now, we spoke a couple years ago when we did a big feature story on you for Glory Days magazine. Is Justin Bieber still your number one, or what? Has that changed?
There's a tie. Justin Bieber and One Direction.
All right, so it's a tie, huh? Sarah, let's get you back in here real quick. What's it like now for you seeing Megan go through high school? She's getting towards the end of her high school career here, and it's you're now in that older sister of a teen senior kind of thing. And does she come to you for advice or anything like that, or how's the relationship grown between you guys?
I mean, Meg's kind of always been my best friend. But she talks a little bit more about boys. She'll tell me some things that you can't tell Dad, and I'm like, I won't tell Dad, but sometimes I do. I'm not gonna lie. But no, she's always been fun to hang out with. But now we can do some more grown up things, and she still doesn't like to go shopping with me though, which I'm still working on. We're gonna get that.
We're working on that. All right.
But yeah, no, she's really fun to hang out with. She's a good best friend.
Does she ever get on your nerves?
I mean, what sister doesn't? It's kind of a little sister's job, I think.
That's true. Yep.
So,
So Jim, we just got about another minute or two here to wrap this up. Just give us a basic overall feeling of what the family was going through that night and how special that night was for you. Obviously, we saw the reaction you got. Were you surprised at the reaction on social media? I mean, 100,000 impressions just from one photo is kind of crazy to think about.
It's mind-boggling. No, we certainly weren't expecting that. I mean, with the coverage you gave her back in her sophomore year, she became pretty well known, and so I'm not to say I'm surprised. No, because again, people have just taken to Meg and her story, and your pictures captured it perfectly. The joy on her face while she's playing, people just gravitate to that. But certainly, as a family, we always joke that we're kind of a package deal. Usually, if you see one of us, you see multiple of us.
What does this kind of thing do for the rest of the special needs community in Egg Harbor Township and even beyond that school? I mean, we really need to do, I think, even a better job than what we're doing in terms of including these students in the sports world and not only the sports world, but even beyond and kind of bring everybody together a little bit more. And, how far will this go, her getting this kind of attention towards bridging that gap a little bit between the special needs students and the other students?
Well, you'd like to think like Egg Harbor Township does a I sound like a broken record, but they do a great job with that. She's involved in besides sports and multiple clubs at school, and
right.
They've all been accepting. And but I have friends who have children who are special needs in other districts, and what it's done is it's kind of had them say, well, wait a second, why don't we have this kind of inclusion? Mm-hmm. And they're asking the right questions to the right people. So, I'm hoping that, that more districts pick up on the positive effect that all this can have on the whole school community in general. I mean, it's kind of a unifying thing, and it's really inspiring. It really is.
How neat has this whole experience been, especially the senior night, for you and Renee as parents to kind of just soak that whole experience in as, man, my daughter was out there in the starting lineup on senior night, and the whole crowd was going crazy.
It's crazy to think of where we started, 18 years ago, and where we are today, and the confidence that it's given her, and it's made us pretty confident that she's going to be okay. She's been given all the tools to succeed and live a very productive life, and as a parent of a special needs kid, that's really all you can ask for, is that that she's in good hands and she's able to take care of herself.
Great stuff from the Conover family, Jim, Renee, Sarah, and Megan. We appreciate them stopping by for a very special in-studio segment.